Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the YouthLead webinar series. I'm Maria Brindelmeyer, the Senior Knowledge Management Specialist and YouthLead Coordinator with the Youth Power Learning Project at Making Sense International. Before we get started with our speakers for today, a few housekeeping instructions. Please help share the information more widely on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and you can see our hashtags and handles above. The slides and the recording will be shared on youthlead.org after the webinar. On today's webinar and other webinars, you'll get to know our team members. I'm the one on the left, and you can see Abolaji Omitogon and Ikenna Anyadise, two Atlas Core Fellows from Nigeria who focus on knowledge management and communications for both YouthLead.org and YouthPower.org, including content maintenance and webinars. Nilima Raut, the second from the left, is the project manager for YouthLead and also an Atlas Core Fellow from Nepal. YouthLead is a component of the Youth Power Learning project, and Youth Power Learning is focused on sharing knowledge, learning, tools, and best practices, and what works in positive youth development with the broader development community and with youth. We have defined positive youth development as containing 4 components. Youth should have assets, that could be skills or funding, should have the ability to leverage those assets, that means agency, and the ability to contribute to positive change for themselves and their communities. And youth should also be surrounded by an enabling environment that supports them. Until last year, Youth Power Learning's main focus was on youth supporting organizations, for example, organizations that were implementing youth programs or doing research about youth programs. But the focus had not been on youth themselves as a target audience for the website. With YouthLead, which was launched at the World Bank's Youth Summit in December 2018, the focus is on young changemakers 15 to 35 years old. So let me hand it over to Nilima. Nilima, tell us a little bit more about YouthLead.
Thank you, Maria. The vision for YouthLead is to become the global hub for young changemakers aged 15 to 35, enabling them to maximize their impact through networking, mentoring, and accessing information. The platform offers a great opportunity for youth, different countries, different networks, to inspire and learn from each other, connect beyond their traditional circles, and benefit from many diverse resources and information. And with Google Translate on every page, it is available to a larger group of youth. We have selected over 20 young changemakers as YouthLead ambassadors. The ambassadors are sharing information about YouthLead with their networks and increasing engagement with YouthLead through discussion groups, social media, and now also by sharing their experiences through webinars. In addition to selecting the YouthLead ambassadors, we are also organizing campaigns. For example, a photo contest and a video contest. We are organizing campaigns, mini campaigns by topic, example on mental health or peace building with relevant resources. And we are organizing webinars, some led by ambassadors, some by YouthLead sponsors. We have over 20 sponsors that are collaborating on YouthLead. Now, let me hand it over to today's host of the webinar.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Omitogo Abolaji for YouthLead.org. And I'm excited today we have one of our ambassadors with us to be doing this webinar. Today's webinar topic is titled Storytelling for Change, Online and Offline. I am super excited and delighted to have one of our YouthLead ambassadors present his experiences and lessons learned from the field on storytelling for change, is using online and offline as a tool to tell for storytelling. Our speaker is name is Ebenezar Wikina from Nigeria. Ebenezar is passionate about the role of digital media in fostering development. Ebenezar is famous for using his Java mobile phone to interview over 100 world leaders and experts on the Throw, an interview series he created in 2013. He's currently the project coordinator and editor of the Niger Delta Link, as well as the guest lecturer in the Ken Saro Biwa Polytechnic, where he teaches over 300 final year students the rudiments of digital journalism. For this webinar, we will not be taking questions until the end of the presentations, so please feel free to post your questions in the chat on the right-hand side of the screen throughout the webinar, and we will get to your questions at the end. At this juncture, I would like to hand over to Ebenezar, who will do a more detailed introduction about himself and about today's webinar.
Okay, hi, thank you, Abology, and thank you to YouthLead and the team for the opportunity to share this this morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on where you are. So basically, my background is in media for development. I had worked for the past 10 years, first as an intern journalist, working with the magazine, and then I've worked with some city newspapers over a couple of years before I got into development 2 years ago. So my media before had been focused on like regular traditional media, radio, TV, before I got online and I saw the power of the internet and how it can amplify stories that are told, from anywhere in the world to reach everybody everywhere. And that is why the focus of my webinar today would pretty much be about how to share the stories that the many young leaders are doing so much work in various parts of the world, but I want to focus on how you can use your mobile phone, use your smartphone, use online and offline, tools to share those stories with the world, using YouthLead, using the various social media platforms we have available to us, and getting the required attention, you need to the work that you're doing in your corner. So I'll just go right into it, if you permit me. So how do I think mobile phones can empower young change makers? So generally we know that we're in the age of the internet and digital communication, right? And like I earlier mentioned, there are several change makers doing several things. People are working in almost every sector, and there are young people doing, leading the change. And that's in climate change. All of the 17 SDGs pretty much. And all of this work most of the time goes unreported, untracked, and because sometimes even the smaller NGOs and organizations don't have like a monitoring and evaluation system. So their stories often are just, within their organization or within them and their friends. But with social media and the fact that we have mobile technology had made it possible for us to, use those simple tools at our disposal to share, our stories, to share our success stories, share our best practices, share even our challenges, to solicit ideas on how to overcome them with the world and using our various social media platforms. So I'll talk about the work I've done. The webinar is like two-sided. I'll share the work I've done, and then I'll also talk about I'll just share some tips, from our mobile journalism community. There's a global mobile journalism community right now on Facebook where we share tips on how to do mobile storytelling. So I'll share some tips, some best practices from that group, and also the practices I've seen that I've used in my work that have been very, very useful to me and to the things I've done over the past decade. So as project coordinator and editor of ND-Link, at the high level, most of the work I do is pretty much focused on engaging NGOs. When ND-Link, that's Niger Delta Link, was set up, we noticed that there were NGOs in the Niger Delta. There were quite a number of organizations doing amazing work because the Niger Delta is known for being very violent prone, conflict prone. People were scared, donors were scared to put in money, into a very volatile community and environment. But then there were NGOs doing stuff in 2012. So PIN Foundation, the organization that ND Link is under, Pain Foundation reached out to DevX, and then they worked together to set up ND Link, that's Niger Delta Link. Now, ND Link was set up to now tell those stories, those local stories that are happening in the Niger Delta. I mean, over 31 million people in the Niger Delta region, several NGOs, over 5,000 NGOs, doing amazing work, carrying out projects here and there with little or no assistance, hardly any funding, most times with personal funding. And so the idea was, how can we get attention, get donors to see the work that they're doing and put the stories out there. So because of my work for the past 2 years, I've been engaging directly with these NGOs, their communication officers, the founders, the directors, the young change makers who are doing things, in these respective organizations. I'd also been working with tertiary institutions a lot in the Niger Delta. I currently lecture at the Kent Arawiwa Polytechnic at the Mass Communication Department, pretty much teaching digital journalism, online journalism, but with a focus on how they can use their mobile phones to also tell stories, start online enterprises, media enterprises, and build, brands and businesses for themselves using the internet. I also engage with media professionals, people who work on radio, TV, to pretty much engage, develop their skills, engage them about development issues, because most times if you come to a typical radio station in the Niger Delta, they want to play just music and talk about gist and fashion, but we're trying to see how we can get them to focus on development related issues and also put out the things that matter on the internet. So that is pretty much what I will be focusing in this webinar. Feel free to drop your questions at the end. We'll be happy to share. So just a little more summary about ND Link. So ND Link was founded by DevX and Pain, like I said. A market research was done in 2012, moved across the Niger Delta states. There are 9 Niger Delta states. I mean, Nigeria as a whole has 36 states, and 9 of those states are in the Niger Delta, which is the southern parts of Nigeria. So research was done by DevX and Pain. They found out the issues, the challenges I mentioned earlier that NGOs are facing. So ND Link was then set up in 2014, pretty much the end of 2014, after the research and some strategy planning, to fill this information gap. It was an information gap, and so ND Link is an access to information intervention that was designed to get people more informed about what's happening in the region, and also get people in the region informed about what's happening out there, in Nigeria and in the development world. So it had been doing that since 2015 to 2019. So far, we've had over 40 million hits. We're very close to 15 million hits on our platform. Pretty much people just accessing information, stories, job opportunities. In fact, the Niger Delta region has, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, has the highest unemployment rate in Nigeria. So part of what we focused on lately is in trying to develop a jobs platform, a jobs board on ND Link, putting out job openings, internship opportunities. I mean, that they can find just around them. So we've gone to private sector organizations, engaged them to share the information with us, and we've been putting out that information out there as a way to facilitate access to information to these opportunities just for everyone. So yeah, so that's pretty much what we've been doing at ND Link. It's been challenging because most times we need to go into the field, and be without internet for quite a number of days, just trying to engage these local NGOs, trying to teach digital literacy, trying to get them to understand, the power of the internet, how they can use the internet to put their stories out there for the world, and which is what we'll be talking about moving on. Okay, so just a few best practices from running ND Link and the things that we have seen so far, and also just one challenge as well. So as a best practice, we've noticed that in implementing access to information projects, it is very important to understand the audience you are pretty much working with. So when you understand the audience you're working with, to help you to design, strategies, product, services, ideas, it will make you understand where they are, how to reach them, and things like that. So for Niger Delta Link, we noticed that most people in the Niger Delta are pretty much I mean, this social media wise now, are pretty much on Facebook, right? So we had made sure that we had focused most of our activities since 2014 to about 2017 on Facebook. But then in 2017, we did some research and found out that there was a growing population of millennials who were from the Niger Delta region, who maybe schooled abroad or schooled in other parts of Nigeria, who were also active on Twitter, and they were having like a little Niger Delta community on Twitter, and they were growing and discussing issues and things like that. So NDLink had to set up a Twitter account, and we deliberately targeted, those kind of people. We have a program called the Champions Program, where some of them are like volunteers on NDLink, and they work with us to put out those information, those stories, to reach the right people. So all of these had to come with research, right? The market study for setting up NDLink was done for like 1 year, the whole of 2012 and 2013, for strategy planning and everything. And so when the platform eventually came up, there was so much data and research, that had gone into it. So if you're doing an information project, whether it's a Facebook page, whether it's a Twitter account, whatever it is you want to start, make sure that you know where your audience is, because your audience is they are your customers pretty much. So if to use business terms, you have to find your customers. You have to know who you're selling that information to, where are they, and how can you reach them. As a challenge, we've had very high, or should I say very low internet penetration in Nigeria, and this has pretty much limited most of our activities in rural communities, like I mentioned. PIN Foundation, the mother organization for Niger Delta Link, had on their own been engaging government, to facilitate access to internet, internet for all, and things like that, setting up masts and all that in rural communities. But that hasn't moved as fast as we want. So we have noticed that for people who have, pretty much Java phones who don't have any connection to the internet, we have employed short messaging services, that is SMS, to pretty much reach people in those kind of communities. So we do like a summary of the information that we had shared. It's been expensive, but it's been effective because we've gotten so much good feedback, in how they've been able to use information we've shared, whether it's about farming, agriculture, which is one of the key fortes for NDLink, or whether it's about how to apply for a job, design a resume, just short messages. We've worked with some network providers to share this information down to the grassroots, seeing that the internet penetration is low. We are hoping and working to see that this increases. That is, we'll have a lot more internet penetration across the Niger Delta region and across Nigeria and the world. But while that is going on, we are looking for frugal ways we can reach people, with our stories, and also we go out there to the field a lot more to engage with them. Okay. So just a few tips for people who want to pretty much understand how to tell stories online, film stories in mobile phone. Just a few tips just to share. I may not go through all of them because of our time, but I'll pick the very important ones. So the first one is to clean your lens. So if you have your mobile phone in your hand, if you turn to the back of the phone, you have so you have two things. You have the flash, the camera flash, and you have the lens. Yeah, the camera lens. Some phones these days have like two cameras, so you have like 2 or 3 lenses at the back, and then you have the flash by the side. It's either arranged horizontally or vertically. So depending on your model, your phone model, you can decide to check that out. So use a clean cloth. Most times it's advised to use like a clean towel, white towel, or even use the hem of your shirt or blouse, that is clean, to wipe across before you take a shot. Wipe across that lens gently, not harsh. Don't scrub it so it doesn't crack or form lines on it, but just something gentle and soft. Just clean across it, because most times our phones drop on the floor, they're on the bed, or dust settles on them, or they're in our pockets with biscuit in our pocket or something, so it's just always safe to clean the lens just to get the best and optimum shots when you want to use your phone to film. Also, sometimes you're filming, making a video, amazing story, and then you notice that someone just calls you to say, oh, maybe there's light in the house, or someone just calls you randomly. A friend hasn't seen you for a long time, just calls you randomly. It's always safe and best that if you wouldn't use the internet to film, because most times you don't need that except you want to live stream, it's best to put your phone on airplane mode or schedule a do not disturb thing on your phone, just to make sure that there are less notifications, no messages, no calls, just to make sure there's no interruption when you're capturing stories. Because there are some stories that if you miss them once, or there are some scenes if you miss them once, you can never recreate them again. So it's always best to make sure you're always ready, and there's nothing blocking you down. For areas like developing countries that have issues with power, areas in Africa, I mean like us, and some another areas, developed areas too, your battery most times can fail you when you least expect. So it's best to make sure before you film, you have your mobile phone fully charged, and as a form of support or backup, you have a power bank, pretty much a battery, phone battery in a case that is also charged with you, because sometimes we underestimate how long we might shoot for, or we don't think we would stay out for so long, or your battery just develops a fault and runs down, or something. So it's just best to always make sure you have your battery charged so your camera can work effectively. Then space on your phone. For those who have videos and memes and pictures on your phone, ensure that you save that maybe in a hard drive on your computer, or create space somehow. I mean, there's cloud saving these days. You can save things on your cloud storage, just to ensure that you have enough space, because it can get really bad when you run out of space in the field, and then you have then you're just struggling to delete things and trying to figure out what to do while your subject is waiting for you. So it's always best to do that. The fifth point is very important, because for people who are into like filmmaking, they will always tell you that it's best to shoot films pretty much horizontally. So just like you have your slides, presentation slides in 16:9 and 4:3, the various ratios. 16:9 allows for more space in the video or in the page or whatever you're filming, for you to add text and subtitles and things like that. If you're shooting in 4:3, which is portrait, I mean, things like Snapchat and Instagram stories can give you so much freedom to do all of that, because I mean, Instagram stories is designed for portrait shooting. But except his Instagram stories, if you're shooting generally, it's always best to shoot in 16:9, because it allows for space, allows for manipulation. You can cut, you can crop, you can do things around with all of that space on 16:9. Also, this is like a rule of thumb: always keep the lights behind you. So if you're shooting a subject, don't shoot facing the light, shoot back in the light, so that light reflects on the subject's face and not on your face. So you shouldn't be looking at the sun, you should be back in the sun, pretty much. This helps pretty much to make sure that your film or whatever you're shooting, your video, is clear enough for people to see. Whether it's a picture, is clear for people to see, and then it adds color and beauty to it. It's always good to use natural lights. Most people are against using flash. Try as much as possible to not use the flash on your phone. Except your hands are pretty tight, there's no natural light anywhere, then you can be forced to use flash, because most times the flashlight on our mobile phones distorts the image and the color of the video of picture that we're taking. So ensure you do that all times to avoid something like that. The audio advice, so there are mics these days that you can use for mobile phones, right? Amazon has quite a number of them. There are several of them on stores, online and offline. But if you can't get a mic, let's say you can afford a mic or something, it's always best to get really close to the subject. Move really close. I mean, in the world of mobile journalism, we call it zooming with your feet. So you move instead of zooming with your hand on the screen or on your phone, you move close enough as you can hear the person speak audibly and clearly, because that's what you hear is what the person would hear. If you don't have a mic, so the person watching the video online will hear. So make sure you can hear as clear as possible. Use yourself as a prototype, to test what the video is going to look like. And then I just mentioned something in passing: zooming with your feet, not with your hand. For those who take pictures with their mobile phone, maybe you go for an event or a workshop and take a picture to post on YouthLead. Avoid using the zoom on your phone. I mean, the zoom on your phone is not bad, but again, just like the flashlight, it distorts the image a lot. So you have grainy images that are not clear enough when expanded, when you want to use them for banners or things like that. So you go close to the subject and shoot the thing. Don't try to stay from far and zoom in, except it's a conflict situation where your life might be in danger if you go too close, or you don't want to get too close so the person doesn't get too conscious or something. Yeah, that's very understandable. But as much as possible, try to get in really close before you shoot. All these other points are pretty technical. Nothing. These are things you can understand. Make sure your focus is always locked in. Start recording. Zoom with your feet. That's the last point I mentioned earlier. Do various kinds of shots. So when you're shooting a video or taking a picture, it's always good to try various angles, because sometimes we eventually find out when we get into edit or to bring out the picture from the camera or from the phone that you should have tried this other angle or this other angle, and then you eventually find out that the angles that you eventually work with are angles that you should have tried that you just did not try. You get. So shoot wide, shoot medium, shoot close up. Just try different things that will make sense, that will look good, for the shoots. So these are filming tips. Let's just try a couple of video editing tips, and I'll talk about some apps that we can use as well. So for video editing tips, there are quite a number of video editors apps mobile that are available on mobile phone. I'll just pick maybe two or three things here. So there's A-roll and B-roll, right? This is like a mini video making class. So there's A-roll and B-roll. A-roll is a roll that has your subjects, whatever you're trying to show out there, your story, pretty much, in focus. And then B-roll is the accompanying footage that's like added spice to it. So always make sure you have A-roll and B-roll. So if you're interviewing someone, for example, who works with children, right? So you're shooting the guy, he's saying, "Oh, my name is Peter, I'm from XYZ, I've done XYZ," and then you want to, while Peter is speaking, you want to also show the children, or show him working with the children, or show him walking into his office, or show, just something to add some context to the story. That's what we call B-roll. So make sure you use B-roll and A-roll side by side for your shooting. Background music is good. When it's very high, it can be distracting. So ensure you moderate it very well if you want to use background sound. I mean, background sound can tickle emotions, can bring in so many things, can be used as effects when used very well. But it can be very distracting when it's very high and not moderated. So ensure you have that well as well. So let me just go to the apps quickly. For the apps, I'll tell you my recommendations. I mean, all of these apps are amazing. I'll tell you my recommendations. This list was compiled by Bernard Hill, one of the amazing mobile journalists in our group, little community of mobile storytellers that is growing. For photo, so we have Android and Apple, which are like pretty much the two most popular operating systems for mobile phones. So for photo editing, shooting, etc., what I would recommend for Apple, I mean, Apple's native camera, the iOS native camera, or any Apple phone's native camera is very, very good. You could use Pro camera as well to Android shooting. I pretty much use camera. I've personally used camera FV5. All the other apps on the list are also very good, but I found camera FV5 very easy, very easy to manipulate, play around, add some effects here and there to whatever you're filming, and then it gives you some manual controls as well So you can increase like shutter speed, ISO, the things you can do with pretty much a DSLR camera. You can do that with cinema, with camera FV5. With filming, most people tend to use Filmic Pro for recording on Apple, because as well it gives you a lot of manual functions, just like camera FV5. But Filmic Pro is available on Apple and Android, so you can decide to check it out, as well as other apps there. Like I said, with mobile storytelling, depends on your phone brand, depends on your choice, depends on the size of your phone. So you might not want to take an app that is too heavy. That's why there are several options. An app that is too big if you have a very small memory size. So take what suits you that you can use, to put out your stories out there. For video editing, LumaFusion gives you quite a lot of iMovie. I think is very, that's like a native app on the Apple device. I mean, it gives you a lot of controls as well, but people tend to use LumaFusion a lot more. I personally have used KineMaster for Android to shoot my very first documentary I shot for my mobile phone. Traveled across 3 states in the Niger Delta region to talk about the tech ecosystem. I shot that with KineMaster. I edited that with KineMaster, shot that with Cinema FV5, and it was amazing as well. So you can try that. You can try Power Director. It's very famous. It's pretty much Power Director on your laptop, on your mobile phone. It gives you that same function, as well as Vlogit and Qt Cuts. For audio editing, Ferrite seems to be one of the top apps on iOS. I personally have used RecForge. RecForge is not on this list, but you have Field Recorder, you have Ophonic, you have Audio Evolution Mobile, but I've used RecForge. It's still in beta testing mode because it's very, it's very complicated. It has several functions, but it gives you a very clear sound that you can add into your video and make it sound really, really good if you don't have a mic. Other special apps, Quick. In fact, I use Quick, Quik, whenever I'm doing like teachings in class about how people can tell stories on mobile phone. Storyboard also helps you to like lay out all your video footages on one board, and you can play around with it, make it look like a collage and everything. But Quick is very easy. I mean, you don't even need anyone to show you how Quick works. It's pretty much add your video, choose your sound, choose your theme, everything. Just gives you that chance to play around with. But like I said when I started, all of this is just to, as much as possible, if you have a professional who can do these things for you and you can afford it, it's amazing to engage a professional to do that. But for like young change makers who are in areas where you can't get a professional or you're not able to afford as an organization and things like that, these tips are very, very good for you, because on your own you can begin to tell stories, make documentaries, and shoot videos with your mobile phone. You can get on YouthLead if you want to get some more about these apps. Register on YouthLead to get some more information. So my advice for peers, I would say acquire basic digital marketing skills, because generally the world is in a marketing bubble pretty much at the moment. Everything and everyone needs to be branded. So as a professional, you need to brand yourself. As an organization, as an NGO, you have to brand. Everything just needs to be branded and put out there. So basic skills will pretty much be how to use certain applications, certain social media platforms. Some of these MOOCs are available on YouthLead as well. So you can find out how to use basic things like Google, Facebook, Twitter, how to sponsor posts and things like that. It will help you to put out your brands out there, because it's possible to shoot a very good video and have it lying dormant on your social media platform. The first challenge is there's no way to shoot a video. So you can shoot a video, get a very wonderful story, and have it on your social media, and get maybe like 1 or 2 likes or 1 share from your friend, without it having that viral effect. So I advise you to take a step further. There are free online courses, there are MOOCs I've mentioned on YouthLead that you can check out. That would help you get a basic understanding of these. Also understand that information is powerful. In my work so far, I found that information can be a catalyst for development. There have been several organizations, several success stories, that have worked with us at Niger Delta Link, that we've seen grow from pretty much a small NGO to a medium-sized NGO that is now receiving grants from whether it's USAID or DFID, for several projects in the Niger Delta region. So most times people are just one piece of information away from their next breakthrough. So my advice is stay informed. Whether it's on the latest apps that you can use for storytelling, on the latest grants, on the latest best practice in your field, make sure you stay informed on things like that to help your work. And then I've talked a lot about online engagements, right? But while we're building ND Link and trying to get it off the ground, we found out that offline engagement was also very key for us. So we did digital marketing, we sponsored on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere. But we noticed that to reach more people, to get more action, we had to like go for meetings and go for workshops and go for all those things, to get people to speak to us and sign up on the platform. So in the work that you do, it's amazing to have these storytelling skills. I shared some tips earlier. It's great, but always complement that with offline and online activities. So just like the theme for this webinar is storytelling online and offline. So how can you also look for the networks, the meetings, the engagements that are holding in your field or your sector, and how can you make sure you're relevant in those networks and those sectors, putting your work out there, putting yourself out there, putting your stories out there. Are there platforms you can publish on? YouthLead gives you that amazing opportunity to share your information, share your success stories, share your projects, on the project map, and put out that success that you want people to know about. Okay. Role of YouthLead. Finally, I'll say YouthLead pretty much has helped me to connect with several young change makers and made friends from several people all around the world. People who I'm sure I would most likely not meet if I'm stuck here in the Niger Delta. But because of YouthLead, I've been able to know them, meet them, connect with them on several other platforms. And we've been discussing, sharing best practices, talking about various projects. And I mean, I'm hoping to see that there'll be other collaborations even out of YouthLead. So what I would like to see a lot more, and what I think you should also be looking out for is, I'll also be looking out for ways to work with young people. If you're listening, you have an access to information project that you've worked on, I'd like to just see how we can discuss best practices. What have you done? What can we do together? Are there ways we can collaborate? Is there something that you're working on that I have an idea of? Is there something I want to do that you know better? I'd just like to discuss and share a lot with you. So how can my peers help me? Pretty much anyone out there on a similar project, like I said, I'm all for networking and building knowledge. So if you have a similar project, let us know. Connect with me. If you know of resources on YouthLead, you publish something you think will be useful to me or a resource out there, you can always share the links with me. I'll be happy to use that to grow. And most importantly, get on YouthLead. Connect with me. I'm pretty active. I'll follow you if you follow me back. So let us connect. Let us share. Let us continue to grow in knowledge.
Thank you very much.
I wish you the very best.
Very interesting and engaging.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for sharing those wonderful skills and tips for storytelling through mobile. And I think you would almost agree with me that the world is gradually gravitating towards mobile, where you have tons of users always stuck on a mobile phone. And thank you again for sharing those information.
Yeah.
And those interesting tips. We already have some questions actually gathered for you.
Thank you so much.
And I would like to ask some of these questions to you. And the first question says, in terms of advocating for change through storytelling, what would you consider or highlight as key skills and key to success when advocating for youth change or youth rights?
So I would say one skill which I've pretty much touched in course of this webinar is pretty much being able to capture the stories, right? So the stories are happening everywhere. Most of them go unnoticed. Most of them are just known locally. But if you're able to capture the stories, when they happen naturally, organically, you're able to post that online and share it and market it. It's able to reach a lot more people. So I think one skill you need to have is mobile storytelling. But even before I go to mobile storytelling, I think I jumped one of the most important skills, which is to be able to tell when something is a success story. There are several resources on YouthLead where you can find more information about this. But any story that appeals to your emotions, intellectual capacity, and talks about change, shows a difference in something, whether something has moved from here to there. Any story that shows that something has changed, pretty much. That is the success story that is worth capturing, and what's telling. So I'll say understand, identify the story first of all, and then with your mobile, if you have enough money as an organization or as an individual to contract a professional, I'm sure they'll be very happy, to engage them and pay them to shoot your story for you, and they can do that for you. But these days, with your mobile phone, you have as much power in your hands. With the apps I've shared earlier, with the skills, the tips I shared earlier about making sure your lens is clean and everything. You can take, a good story and put it out there. And with YouthLead's discussion platform, you can raise discussions about them, put it online for people to discuss and push it out there. So yeah, I think mobile storytelling is a very important skill for advocacy.
Another question is, what would you consider the best approach for young change makers who are interested in volunteering, their skills either in storytelling, either through videography or even, graphics, for example, with organizations or NGOs or even non-profits, while also ensuring that they are well acknowledged for their works also? Or what would you consider the best approach?
Yes, that's very, very good. I think that's an amazing question. It's a very good way to put yourself out there. I would say, first of all, I know I sound like a broken record, but first of all, usually provides an opportunity for you to, build a portfolio, right? So when you have a documentary or you've done a project on the knowledge platform, you can put stories out there about it. So that can be a portfolio for you. So you have links you can always share with clients or organizations that you want to reach out to work with them. But I'll say take the initiative to look out for those organizations around you, within your community, or even internationally, who you see who have a problem with telling their stories, who have a problem with storytelling, or even don't have a problem, but you can bring a unique skill or a unique ability, to their work to enhance their storytelling. I also reach out to them. I did that a lot because of my work. I'm sure I sent between 2015 and 20 between 2013 and 2015, I'm sure I sent maybe like 1,500 emails randomly to people everywhere saying, I want to work with you, I want to volunteer, I want to do something, let me do this for you, let me do that for you. And a few people got back actually, and we built relationships that had lasted for a very long time. So I would say take the initiative. Most times as storytellers, we want to be reached out to, but also reach out to people with those unique skills, sell yourself, market yourself. And YouthLead gives you the opportunity to build a portfolio for yourself by posting your stories and everything there, your graphic banners and all under the knowledge platform that gives you that, opportunity to share links eventually in the future with those people.
This is pretty much
get on
question. I think some of the answers already touched some of them on some of this question I'm about to ask. But ahead, what are the top 5 things as a young change maker that you need to prepare, to deliver a good storytelling content?
Okay. Yeah. So top 5. Number 5, or should I say number 1? Number 1 would be to find the story, right? So like I talked about making sure you're able to identify what a good success story is. Sometimes people want to tell some stories that are not as compelling because they are not true. Sometimes people want to falsify stories, but if you can naturally tell a story, you can naturally see a story that is real, that is true, that is organic, that is not fake, it will always evoke emotional response from people who watch. So find the story, number 1. Number 2, do you have a mobile phone? If you have a good mobile smartphone, that would be amazing. If no, that can be a challenge. You can work with a friend or work with anyone who has a mobile phone, get someone who has those skills. If you have a mobile phone, that's amazing because then you can download the apps. I shared tips earlier. Download the apps, whether it's for video editing, whether it's for filmmaking, recording the film, taking audio recordings. I forgot to mention that it's possible for young change makers to also share podcasts. So with audio apps, you can record podcasts, just maybe a discussion with you and your colleagues or you and your friends, start the podcast series. And these days, podcasting is taking off in the developing world. I mean, in America and in the UK, quite a number of popular podcasts already who are beginning to be profitable. So podcasts are picking up in most parts of the world. So it's something you can also consider doing, making sure that you just have the right apps. I'll say is the third point. Going out there is also the fourth point. That's another tip. I think most times we prefer, it's very convenient to sit down in our comfort zones and in being in our offices or wherever we work. And just want to be there most times because it's very comfortable. Maybe there's AC or something, but it's best to always go out there because the stories you're looking for are usually out there. So the stories of work you've done in the past are out there in the workshop or in the seminar or something you've done. Just go out there and make sure you get that change to happen. The fifth or the first one I'll say is to make sure that make sure you're not trying to be fake or don't try to be perfect with the story. So most times we want to make sure, your head should be this way, let the story just be perfect, let the video framing be perfect. As much as we always encourage people to make sure the tips are amazing and you follow all those guidelines, sometimes you're shooting a film and one guy just passes through, the footage or something just happens. With mobile storytelling, it's most times it's permissible or permissive for you to have some disruptions here and there. Just make it natural, make it fun, make sure that whatever you put out there is fun. And for me, that's the last point. It should be fun. The story you tell, the recording you make, the picture you take, fun or comedy or entertainment seems to be seeping through every single thing that we do today, whether it's in sports or fashion or development or whatever. Most young people, I did a survey a couple of months ago, most young people who spend time on Instagram are often on like comedians platforms, comedians accounts, watching skits and sharing memes and things like that. So fun seems to be a very good driver for information lately. So make sure whatever story you tell has fun, it's short, it's not too long and boring. Tell your story quickly, just go straight to the point, tell the story, give a short background, and let it be engaging for people to watch and move on to the next thing. Because people these days, our fingers are very, very active, wanting to move to the next thing, the next quick thing, the next quick thing. So make sure your things are fast enough to pass the message and you move on to the next thing.
Volunteer with people, be original, not perfection, entertain, have fun, and tell the story.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for sharing your insights and knowledge. Thank you also again. I would also like to thank our audience for joining us today on today's webinar. And if you have any question, please feel free to post the questions in the chat box, and our speakers will be attending to them. If you have not joined YouthLead, I encourage you all to do so, and this will enable you to network with other young change makers and also join the discussion groups on YouthLead. As a member, you can post your content, share resources, your short videos or blogs, or even events and other funding opportunities with other young change makers on YouthLead. You can also join our discussion groups and also post your projects and also get visibility for your project. Every month, members also get YouthLead newsletters, and where we highlight our young change makers on the platform. You can also follow us on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, to continue to engage with us. And above all, please reach out to our sponsors and continue discussion with them about these topics, and also in the discussion groups. I would also use this opportunity to say thank you to our many sponsors. In addition to the funding, they contribute resources and also the youth network to the platform. And of course, you'll be hearing from YouthLead sponsors from time to time and on various webinars. Last but not least, again, I'd like to thank you all again for joining us today. We hope you will join us our next webinar, and continue to check our event page on YouthLead for more webinar announcements, or even on Facebook for maybe webinar announcements. And as said in the beginning, so the presentation will be available on the YouthLead website. Thank you all to all the registrants again, and I hope to see you next time.